close that.
I hate that.
We can hit the record and see what happens.
Yeah, hit that.
Oh,
Or
no,
hit
we
cancel.
can't do that.
Just hit close.
All right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Christopher Manente, and I'm the Executive Director of the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services. Welcome. I'm thrilled to see you all here, and just so glad that you guys are choosing to spend your Tuesday evening, learning more about, disability and wellness and sports. Because as we've heard, in other breakout rooms thus far, this really is a topic that has, gone unnoticed and understudied, to this point. So it is really exciting that we're getting an event, started that is dedicated specifically to this topic. So just as a quick overview of what today's breakout session is going to entail. So I'll be providing just a general overview of the current state of things for autistic adults, both in terms of exercise, sports, and wellness, and just generally speaking, because frankly, a lot of the trends that we see in terms of lack of access to exercise and sports for people on the spectrum really carry over into a lot of other areas of wellness and quality of life in general. So after, I speak for about 15 minutes, we're going to hear from Alex Sheck, who is a gold medal winning Special Olympics athlete, and his mother Angela, on their personal experiences, in kind of navigating, different athletic, different athletic programs as athletes, as coaches, equipment managers, parents, and also as, fans of sports and athletics. And then finally, with any remaining time, we'll close out with a question and answer session. So for any of you that have questions as we go along, please feel free to kind of put those in the chat, and we won't address those questions as we're going, but we'll circle back to them with any remaining time that we have left. So I want you to all just to take a moment and kind of take in, the information on this slide. So I'm betting that most of you are as shocked as I was, to read these statistics. So the current data and statistics related to outcomes corresponding to overall quality of life for autistic adults are alarming, to say the least. There are currently around 5 million adults with autism living in the US who, as a group, arguably have the poorest quality of life compared to any other population of people living in our society. And, right here at the top of this slide, perhaps the most alarming research findings suggest that the average lifespan of someone with autism is currently half that of the general population. And it's an average of 36 years of life versus 72. So it's really important here that I be crystal clear that autism itself is not a cause of premature mortality. It's the many preventable and treatable medical and mental health conditions such as obesity, depression, and anxiety that result from a lack of adequate services, supports, and opportunities for inclusive, healthy living that are the cause of these statistics. So on the individual level, the support needs of people with autism can vary widely, ranging on one end of the spectrum from people with many co-occurring medical, physical, neurological, and/or cognitive conditions who need round-the-clock intensive supports to meet all of their basic needs, including those related to safety and basic personal hygiene, to the other end of the spectrum, where there are individuals with autism who have advanced doctoral training and are among the world's foremost experts in their chosen fields. And then there's everyone in between. So again, in terms of, a group of people with autism are, as diverse as people in general, right? Which again, makes this a really complex kind of group of people to study and understand. So this enormous variability in the traits and corresponding support needs of people with autism at the individual level is not accounted for by the vast state-run systems that are designed in a way to provide undifferentiated, cookie cutter solutions to people with a wide range of disabilities, right? And generally speaking, I'm talking about state level departments of health, divisions of developmental disabilities, divisions of vocational rehabilitation services, which really aren't set up to specialize and provide services on a customized or individual level, but are set up in a generalist approach to try to serve enormous swaths of humans with a bunch of different traits and characteristics. For decades, adults with autism have been faced with the choice of settling for bare minimum services grounded in the ineffective generalist approaches that these state-run agencies are built upon, or to get no support at all. This institutional level systems failure is largely to blame for the alarming statistics and poor outcomes among adults with autism that I am sharing with you today. And again, I want to be crystal clear here. This is not an autism problem. The crisis that I am referring to is not that there are people with autism. People with autism are not a problem to be fixed or something to be cured. The crisis is that people with autism are not given the opportunity to participate and succeed within our society in the way that it is currently arranged. The real problem at the source of this crisis is a system grounded in the belief that people with autism and others with disabilities are not worth investing in, that they have little value to add to society and are generally merely consumers of resources. This has resulted in a system that focuses on providing the bare minimum in terms of resources needed for survival, instead of investing in high quality services that would allow adults with autism to thrive and achieve their full potential. Up until recently, there's been very little focus on what happens to children with autism when they grow up. This has become a vicious cycle where the lack of established research to identify effective practices for adults with autism contributes to a lack of training opportunities for support personnel, which then contributes to a lack of high quality programs and services, which then in turn results in a lack of opportunities to conduct research. And round we go. While it seems like we are just now starting to gain some momentum in focusing on research with adults with autism, the vast majority of funding for research in autism continues to go towards identifying effective services for children and to exploring causes and cures. Still, only about 1% of funding for autism research goes to looking at issues that correspond directly to adults on the spectrum. So one of the emerging concepts that is really driving autism rights movement is this idea of neurodiversity. And this concept of neurodiversity refers to the idea that we all exist on a spectrum, okay, and that there's no arbitrary lines between what is typical and what is atypical, right? And so the neurodiversity movement challenges all of us to move from awareness of autism and towards acceptance of autism, right? It really challenges society to move to a place where people with neuro differences, including autism, are afforded, the same opportunities and rights as other people in our society. And over the past 2 decades, the autistic self-advocacy movement has contributed to calls for the adoption of an understanding of this principle and this framework of neurodiversity. A world informed by a philosophy of neurodiversity would look like all humans existing along, again, a continuum of neurological traits, and people with autism not being labeled as broken, damaged, or lesser than anyone else. In other words, an individual's inherent traits and or autism would not result in a situation where they are at any kind of disadvantage for success in our society. So unfortunately, while the large-scale adoption of the philosophy of neurodiversity is representative of the world as we would like it to be, it is not representative of the world we live in today. In the world we live in today, if you are trying out for a competitive sports team and you have a hard time speaking to communicate or following, imitating someone's model, or following spoken directions, or perhaps you happen to flap your hands in a seemingly non-contextual way or stereotypic manner in the middle of the tryout, chances are you might be less likely to get a spot on the team, right? And this doesn't apply just to sports and athletics and wellness. It really applies to most aspects of life in our society. Where if you're going on a job interview for a competitive corporate job, if you are displaying traits that are recognized as autistic in nature, it's not necessarily that hiring manager might be overtly discriminatory against people on the spectrum, but there might be something in the back of that person's mind that says, maybe another applicant would be less work, right? And again, that really represents the current reality of being an autistic adult in our society. So current research demonstrates that people on the autism spectrum often have far fewer opportunities for engagement in a variety of recreational activities, social, communal gatherings, sports teams, etc., as compared to their same age peers, beginning in early childhood and continuing throughout adulthood. Fewer opportunities to participate in exercise and sports that persist through childhood results in fewer occasions to learn and practice related skills, which can ultimately produce a gradual widening of the gap in physical and athletic ability between the individuals with autism and their typically developing same-age peers. So now I just want to take a few moments to talk about the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services and our model, in case there's anyone in the audience who's interested in learning more about the work we do on a more global scale. So the conceptual model for the RCAS is grounded in this idea that we know that the world is not currently grounded in a philosophy of neurodiversity. So we ask ourselves the question, how do we go about ensuring that all adults with autism can succeed in living their best life in the world the way it is today? We accomplish this through advocacy and by simultaneously addressing the absence of research, training, and programming by doing all three concurrently in a way where one informs the other. When a clinical challenge arises in our program, we conduct research to determine the most effective way of addressing it, and then we train others what we've learned. Our goal is to create the best program for adults with autism that anyone has ever seen before. Our question is, what would a diverse group of adults with autism be able to achieve under ideal circumstances? And we seek to answer this question as a means of generating a deep understanding of the specific factors and conditions that are required for success for this population of people towards having the largest impact for all adults on the spectrum across the globe. So other programs are kind of relegated to doing the best they can with the very sparse resources that they're provided from the state and the government. We just do the best we absolutely can for the participants that we support, and we figure out innovative ways of generating revenue and philanthropy in order to pay for those services. Through our 3 units, including the SCALE program, which stands for Supporting Community Access Through Leisure Employment, the College Support Program, where we're supporting autistic Rutgers undergraduate students, and the Psychological Services Clinic, where we're providing diagnostic evaluations and therapeutic services for anxiety and depression for adults on the spectrum. We serve the entire range of people on the spectrum and demonstrate that everyone can succeed if only given the opportunity and support that they need. The crisis for adults with autism that I've described today is not limited to participation in exercise and sports, and it's not limited to the US. It is our hope that the model we are creating can be replicated at other colleges and universities throughout the world. The RCAS exists to stand for those adults on the spectrum who are not always able to stand up for themselves. And whenever possible, it also exists to amplify the voices of those who can. While we advocate for the world to continue to evolve to reflect a vision of neurodiversity, where an individual's neurodifferences do not result in their exclusion from a meaningful adult life, we also recognize that this is not the society we live in today, and the autistic adults we serve need to be armed with a vast toolkit of strategies to ensure that they can realize their potential today, despite the way things are, as we continue to strive to demonstrate to others the way things ought to be. So now I can't even express the pleasure I take in introducing my co-presenters. So Alex Scheck has been a part of the RCAS Scale program since July of 2017. He has worked several jobs at Rutgers University, including at the Rutgers Athletic Center and the Rutgers Post Office. Prior to the pandemic, he also worked at the Yard on College Avenue campus. Alex is a gold medal winning Special Olympics athlete who has represented the state of New Jersey twice, competing in the USA Games as a member of New Jersey soccer team in 2014 and bocce team in 2018. At the state level, he has won numerous bronze, silver, and gold medals for soccer, basketball, volleyball, bocce, and track and field. An avid sports fan, Alex can often be found wearing his Rutgers gear and cheering on any of the Rutgers sports teams, from football to men's and women's soccer to women's volleyball to men's and women's basketball. And joining Alex is his mother, Angela Scheck, who is a 1985 graduate of Douglas College, having majored in journalism and communications. For the past 12 years, she has been the executive director of the New Jersey State Bar Association, the largest professional organization representing the state's legal community. As a parent, Angela helped to create a sports league for kids with disabilities when Alex was 5 years old because no opportunities existed for active sports participation for Alex at that time. That league has expanded and is still active today. Angela is also an avid fan of Rutgers sports teams and attends many games with Alex. So without further ado, I'd love to hand it over to Alex and Angela. Their portion is going to be structured as a discussion-based question and answer format, where Angela will be asking Alex some questions and they'll be having a conversation for us. Again, if you have questions, please put those in the chat. And as soon as Angela and Alex are done presenting, we can circle back and address those questions one at a time. Angela and Alex?
Okay, you ready?
Yep, let's do this.
So Dr. Manente, thank you for inviting us to do this. We're both really excited about it, right, Alex?
Yes.
And you heard that I have a degree in journalism from Rutgers. So we thought we would set this up by me asking Alex some questions as if I were a sports analyst on one of the sports networks. So we'll start by doing that, right, Al?
Yes.
Okay. So Alex, as you heard, really loves sports. I mean, really loves sports. Can you tell us why you love sports so much, Alex?
I love to play in different teams and leagues, and I really love to wear sports gear. When I read about sports, it helps me keep up with the current events. Sometimes when I wear a jersey from one of my favorite teams, people are in the community will start conversations with me about the team. I get to talk to people that way.
One of the things that Alex just mentioned has actually really been very important for him. His knowledge of and understanding of sports has connected him to many, many people because he can, there's a universal interest in sports. And so it allows him to have conversations, with all kinds of people about all kinds of sports all over the world. So it really has been a gateway for him into many other opportunities besides just the sports one. When you were little, Chris mentioned that you started, and we started a league in New Providence.
Yes.
Do you remember that? And what was your first sport, and how old were you when you did that?
It was soccer.
And how old do you think you were? Do you remember?
8 and 10.
And then after soccer, what else did you do in the rec league?
It was basketball.
And one of the things that I think is important to understand is that, at least when Alex was younger, there really were no defined sports programs for people and kids in particular with disabilities. And so for a period of time, he was able to compete in the regular recreation programs. But then as it became only a competitive selection-based process, we really were running the risk that he wasn't going to be selected and there would be no opportunities for him and his peers. So the group of parents approached the local town and got them to set up a sports league that is still actually running today. And most of the programs that I know are run by parents or started by parents. I actually went to the YMCA near where we lived, and we were turned down. And I really thought the YMCA would be the kind of organization that would want to start a program for kids with disabilities, but that wasn't the case. There was another organization across town called The Connection, and they were willing. So it really is very dependent on the people that you're dealing with. And parents need to be advocates to push for programming. I certainly hope that more opportunities exist now than they did when you were younger. But that first rec league led to Alex not just being a observer of sports, but being an athlete and a competitor, and he caught the bug. So you play a lot of team sports, right?
Yeah.
What are the team sports that you play?
The team was
Different team sports, different ones that you play.
It was just the NJ Hawks. It was.
So he plays with an organization called the Hawks, which is also an organization started by parents. They started with 5 kids, and they're now well over 100 young adults and young kids and young adults playing in this league. It plays through Special Olympics. But what are the specific sports that you compete in?
It was soccer, basketball, volleyball, and bocce as well.
Mm-hmm. And what did you learn by playing on these team sports? What do you think you learned from doing that?
During my coaches taught me to compete with good sportsmanship.
Mm-hmm. And can you give an example of how you learned good sportsmanship?
During a soccer tournament in 2018, a player from the other team said something that really upsets me, and my coach helped me to stay calm, so I could get back in the game and not let my teammates down.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that you reinforced a bunch of times, right?
Yes, a bunch of times with that. Try not to actually do that.
Mm-hmm. To get upset during the game, try to keep focused on playing, right?
Yeah.
You got to play, Chris mentioned, in 2 national USA games for the Special Olympics for Team New Jersey. One was for soccer in 2014,
Yep.
which was in New Jersey. And then the second time, which was in 2018, you got to go to Seattle and we're on the bocce team. What did you like about doing that? How did that make you feel?
The games, it makes me feel excited, happy, and proud. The games happen once every 4 years, and I recently got a letter letting me know I can try out for the Orlando games in 2022 for soccer.
That image is Alex's volleyball team that got to play
At Rutgers.
At Rutgers, right?
But we didn't play. But like the Rutgers team is the school
the girls volleyball team.
Yeah.
So and that's you guys with the Scarlet Knight. Is that
Yep.
it? Right. What did you like about the USA games? Do you want to do it again?
Yes.
What did you like about it?
I like about getting gears from that.
Like clothes and things and hats
Yeah.
and stuff.
Clothes and hats with that.
And what else did you like about it?
Getting to meet like the other guys in the other guys in the states.
From all over the country, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then what else? Is there any sort of lessons you learned as an athlete playing?
I was
playing at national level.
I have learned that I can compete against the best under a lot of pressure to perform, and that I can be successful. Like when I won the gold in Seattle in the unified.
What is unified? Do you explain to everybody what unified is? I'm not sure everybody knows that.
Unified is like you have you can do a unified as well. So it doesn't have to be like it's not like a 5-on-5 is not a 5-on-5 or is something different.
Unified is when a Special Olympics athlete is paired with
paired up with
another athlete
Ano-
from high school or college.
Yep.
And
Like one of the like a partner.
And they compete together. Most of the schools, colleges in New Jersey have unified programs, including Rutgers. And
Yes.
which one do you compete with?
Drew
University, because it's closer to our house, right?
Yep. Yes.
And you like that experience as well?
Yes.
And you made some friends with the
Yes.
athletes at those and the students at those schools too.
Yes.
When Alex was in high school, so high school can be very competitive sports wise.
It
and
is.
It's hard for a person with a disability to be able to make a team, a high school varsity team. But Alex at his high school, which was Watchung Hills,
Yes.
was given the opportunity to participate. So tell everybody what you did when you were in high school.
So I was not a player. I was actually quite a manager.
And what did you manage?
I managed the boys varsity soccer, and I managed the girls varsity basketball.
And what did you do as manager? What did you do for them?
First year for the men's soccer, it was actually stats. It was actually the first year, and after that they switched.
And then what'd you do?
They I was actually the manager for that.
And for the girls, what did you do for the girls?
For the girls basketball, I fill up the waters and putting them, filling up waters and when they do a timeout, when they sit at the bench, I actually bring the waters to them.
And what did that make you feel like at your high school? Why do you think that was an important thing for you to be able to do? How did you feel about it?
I feel like I've been involved with something that I wanted to actually do.
And did you earn varsity letters? You got varsity letters for this, right?
Yeah, I did.
So Alex has, I think,
a varsity jacket,
and he received 8 varsity letters and was invited to the award ceremonies for all of
for both
teams.
sports. Yep.
And more importantly, he really formed relationships and friendships with the players.
Yes.
Who even after graduating, he would see them and or get in touch with them, and also through social media. And he formed really close bonds with the coaches, so much so that they invited him, even after he graduated, to come back and help manage both the girls basketball and the men's soccer teams at Watchung Hills. And he did that for probably 3 or 4 years until his schedule just got too busy. But he still is in touch with all of those people and a lot of the students that were on the teams. And it really helped make him feel included in the high school community. It's a really big high school. Even though he wasn't able to play on the team themselves. And it really was a tribute to that school in particular and the attitude that they had and the coaching staff, but most importantly, the other student athletes who were very accepting and very supportive of Alex. And actually tell everybody about the speeches you used to give in the boys' locker room to get them ready for like really important games.
Oh yeah, it was actually pregame speeches.
Pregame speeches. And what would you tell the students, the players?
Just gotta play hard. Just gotta play hard. You gotta win games. And then once you head towards counties, this is gonna be a big one. The big game, right? Is the thing of it is like a big game.
So Alex really became very inspiring, a source of inspiration for both the girls and the boys and in his high school and those teams. All right, let's see, what other questions do we have here for you? Are you you've said that you'd like to work in sports someday, right? And you did for a little while. You worked at the rack at Rutgers, and you really loved that job. What did you do there?
It's right there. Okay. Yeah, right there. Yeah, I got it. So I worked with the equipment managers to deliver uniforms to the softball team, bringing towels into the 4 locker rooms, put away basketball and baseball laundry for the men's teams. I stock the water in the fridge, in the press box, the day of the games at the rack, and I also deliver packages and mail the people who actually worked there. I really liked everything about that job.
And so that job, again, was very dependent on a person who didn't know Alex, but embraced the opportunity to give him an opportunity. His name was Gene.
Yeah, it was Gene. It was Gene Wells.
Gene Wells. And he, I think he was like the head equipment person.
Yeah, he was the
at
head.
Rock. And he embraced Alex. He taught him how to do the job, and he did it really well for a whole year. And then Gene retired. And unfortunately, Alex, the job was discontinued after Gene's retirement. There really wasn't another person who had the same mindset that Gene did and was willing to provide the same opportunity to Alex, which was unfortunate, but you didn't let that get you down, right?
No, it
So-
kind of did for a little bit. Then I got over it with it
Right.
after that.
You are, in addition to being an athlete, you are a huge fan of sports. You're a spectator. You watch often. There's the TV's on, the computer's on, 2 iPads are running, and the computer's
Yes.
going. And they're all different sporting events
Yes.
on those. And in addition, his phone is set to buzz or beep anytime anyone scores a
Yes.
goal anywhere in the world from any soccer league, right?
Yes.
So what's your favorite part about being a spectator when you get to go to watch a game? What do you like to do? Just answer.
So
What do you like to be about being a spectator?
I just like to actually I like it to actually going to like the sometimes I'll watch the games on TV, and on that then I'll go to like the sporting events like live, I think.
How many Rutgers events do you think you've been to? Different games and things.
We went to football, and we went to basketball as well. We went to
Volleyball.
we went to volleyball as well.
Mhm.
And for just in general, for me, I went to the softball games.
Softball, that's right. So you've been to a lot of Rutgers games. Do you miss playing sports during COVID? What do you miss about not being able to be really athletically involved this last year?
Yeah, I do miss it. I miss being active. An example of the stuff like kicking a ball, running outside and working out at the gym. I am missing playing and not having fans to support me and my team. And I have been working out, running on the treadmill, and I put together a workout routine.
Mm-hmm.
And I use my Fitbit and also the Apple Watch to keep track of my activity.
Mm-hmm. In the beginning of before we got started, you were talking about your March Madness bracket. So what's your favorite season? What's your favorite sports to watch?
I have a lot of a lot of the Rutgers teams, like Division I conference for football and basketball, and Division III teams. Division III teams like Drew University, where my cousin plays. I play Unified at Drew University too.
Mm-hmm.
And the teams I like is the Buffalo Bills, and I follow La Liga, Serie A, Premier League, and Bundesliga, and I finished second place in
the March Madness, the family March Madness
Yes.
bracket, right? Alex is very competitive, so he didn't really like finishing in second too much, did you?
No, that's all right.
Is there anything else you want to say before I have a couple of things I want to share with everybody? Are you good for right now?
So in my future, and what I wanted to do is I want to try like to manage a college team, or like a coaching team that I can do it. I can do it like outdoors.
Mm-hmm. That's a great goal to have. One of the things I just want to provide some observations. As you can see, Alex is a huge sports fan, and sports has been a really big part of his life.
Yes,
and I think it's provided, as I said, a lot of opportunity for him to connect with people, to make friends, to have conversations in a language that is sort of uniform for a lot of people. I mean, most people can talk about sports in some way, shape, or form. I mentioned that, the opportunities that are out there are often started by parents, and by parents having to push, which is good. And it's great that parents can do that, but communities really should be more focused on providing these opportunities as part of the fabric of the community, and not necessarily because a parent is asking you to do that, because you'd be surprised at how many people would access the athletic programs who may not have thought that it was okay to ask. One of the things that where I think that is a bit of a disconnect is that for people with disabilities, you often are striving for inclusiveness, which is critically important. But for sports, it can be striving for inclusiveness can create an environment that excludes people with disabilities, because a competitive sports program is going to pick the best athletes. And so if you have a disability that's physical or in nature, or one example given earlier in the conference was of a player who was a great baseball player, but would run all the way around the bases and then keep running. If you have somebody who maybe the rules aren't as clear and need a little bit of support, there's not going to be an opportunity to play competitive, high-level competitive school-based sports. And so there should be community opportunities for kids and young adults with disabilities. And people shouldn't be afraid of that, and that it's not inclusive, because it does provide the health and wellness that exercise can provide. And you just heard specifically for people with autism, how critically important it is to remain physically healthy. But also it becomes a source of friendships. It becomes a source of friendships for the families of those athletes. For instance, for us, we have become great friends with a group of families who we all met because our kids played on the same Special Olympics soccer team out of the New Jersey Hawks. And the experience should be a fun one. It should not be one that makes people feel like they're failing. And it should be one that provides the opportunity for positive reinforcement and for friendships. And so there are times when a specific program for people with disabilities is a better option for an athlete than one that's on the high school varsity or junior varsity team. We talked about Watchung Hills, and I just want to emphasize how important that was to Alex's the positive nature of his experience at Watchung Hills. He was in a self-contained program, so he ate lunch in the school community, but that was really his only other experience, and gym, I think, right?
Yeah.
But it made him really feel included, and he formed lots of friends and made and bonded with people through that opportunity. As a spectator, I want to emphasize the need again, and this goes back to something that you said, Chris. Unfortunately, a lot of opportunity is dependent on individual people saying, I'm okay, I want to do this. I will make an accommodation. I'll create an opportunity. I will give that person a chance. And too many times when that happens, you also find other people who are either afraid or don't understand or think it's extra work or is going to take extra time. And so they won't provide that opportunity. And so really what needs to happen is that the institutions in society need to be the ones that embrace services for people with disabilities, in particular, in this case, athletic opportunities. And I can give you an example as a fan of a really good friend of mine who has a daughter with a physical disability, and they are Rutgers graduates, avid Rutgers fans, and several years ago went to a Rutgers football game and could not access their seats with their daughter's wheelchair. The seats were just too steep. And it was very, very hard to get help, to find a place where they could sit. And because a lot of people just didn't know how to address their concerns and their questions. And so institutionally, again, I think there should be a concierge, a liaison, I understand NJPAC has something like that, and it's a model that can be copied where if you are a family or a person with a disability, whether it's you can't deal with loud noises, or like, for instance, Alex, when he was little at the football game, that the cannon that goes off, he hated that. So we always try to sit a little farther away from that. But NJPAC actually has a person you can contact. They will help you from trying to telling you where to park, which exit to go into, which entrance to go into. They'll help you, accompany you to get you to your seats, make sure that you have what you need. Then they'll contact you during the performance and help you exit and get back to your car. And I think that that's just a model that a lot of institutions and organizations should think about and embrace, because it would make the opportunity more accessible to a lot more people. And if you are a school or an athletic team and you're looking for a fan, you will find no more loyal a fan than somebody with a disability. So I think it really is a win-win opportunity for all involved.
Well, and Angela, what you're suggesting is that, people with autism and other disabilities aren't looking for charity, right? They're just looking for the same opportunities that are afforded to everyone else. And, you couldn't have said it better, right? That a lot of times when someone gets employed, right, it's the other coworkers sometimes in that organization. If there's not, a cultural push for acceptance, those other coworkers might look at that, hire as charity. No matter how good an employee that person is, they're always kind of seen through that lens. And, that's, again, what you said is so impactful. The change has to come at the institutional level, and it has to be a cultural shift.
Agreed. And I think really it's about access, and it's not about charity, it's about access. And some people can access, a program or a performance or a game in the same way that everyone else can, but they still deserve and have a right to have access.
Exactly. So we have about 5 minutes left. There was one question in the chat, Alex. Someone wanted to know who your favorite athletes are. And again, don't rush and say Tom Brady. We know he's the greatest. Settle down.
I think that's gonna happen, but I don't know about
can't dispute that he's the GOAT, but go ahead.
I think he is.
So who are your favorite athletes?
Well,
A few.
not a few, but kind of a lot there. So
Okay, well, name a couple. Let's name a couple. Go ahead.
so as like the athletes are like the are actually quite Messi there, Ronaldo and all that. And then for college, it's everybody here.
Everybody? The whole
Yeah.
team?
They're the whole team.
Very good.
Anyone wearing that block R, right?
Yeah.
Alex bleeds scarlet.
Yes, he does.
I do.
Yesterday, he had a red version of this outfit on.
Yeah, I had the red one yesterday.
So, are there any other questions?
Yeah, so for both of you, is there anything that the people attending this session can do individually to help this community regarding sports?
I certainly know that Special Olympics New Jersey needs lots of volunteers
Yes.
to help coach.
Yeah.
Prior to the pandemic, there are, I think, 4 really big competitions. There's a summer competition held at TCNJ for 2
Yes.
days, and there's a fall sports competition. There's winter one down in
Yes.
Atlantic City, and they're driven really by lots and lots of volunteers. So certainly
Yes.
Special Olympics New Jersey is a great organization for people to volunteer with. But then there's also the programs are run locally. So I'm certain that you could find through Special Olympics, the local chapter, a team often needs a coach, or again, an assistant coach, volunteers. The more the merrier. And it does also provide an opportunity for the parents to get a break and just be spectators if there are other people coaching. And sometimes that's really helpful.
Yeah, and to add to that, the Rutgers Center for Adult Autism Services is always looking for volunteers. We have openings for staff. we are just expanding in every direction, and in particular concerning exercise and sports. You know, we're hoping to do research on the benefits of sports for people on the spectrum with Dr. Brandon Alderman, who's in our audience today. And, you know, also just looking to have programs to make sporting events at Rutgers more accessible for people on the spectrum. So if you want to reach out to me or reach out to us at the RCAS, you know, we can certainly find a way to put you to work.
Yep.
So the next question is, what would you say is the biggest misconception about people with autism and playing sports?
I think the biggest misconception about people with autism is that they are antisocial.
Yeah.
And that they are, you know, they don't want to engage in relationships, and they're just, you know, they don't really easily connect to other people. It may be true for some people, but it really isn't a true statement across the board. Right?
Yes.
And Alex is living proof of that, right? Because you guys highlighted in your talk that sports are a conduit for connection, you know, for Alex, and not just related to sports too, because, you know, in the process of being a sports fan of athletics around the world, like Alex engages in like things that are happening in the news, right? And social events, and is able to talk to family and friends and colleagues like through that lens of sports. So it's actually the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm. What do you think the biggest misconception is?
Yep.
Chris?
So I just think people underestimate individuals who have difficulty connecting and communicating in all aspects of life. Again, you know, seeing Alex in particular as an athlete always blows me away. But again, not because he has autism, just because he's an amazing athlete, right? And I think a lot of times, you know, people define adults on the spectrum by their autism, and, you know, fail to see how incredible they are in the other facets of their life. And, you know, again, it's just, I think people with autism are always underestimated.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have, friends. Again, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thanks.
Come check out our new beautiful community center on Douglas campus.
It is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And a great program.
Yeah.
And really hopefully a model for programs around the country. It is, I don't think people realize, you know, the gem that it is in New Jersey, and how groundbreaking of a program it is. So hopefully it becomes a model, because it's very needed.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is not an issue specific to New Jersey. It's really a global issue where people on the spectrum are underestimated and not seen for the value that they have to add. Nice job, Alex.
Thank